We're speaking with Dr. Ines Dombrowsky, Head of the Department Environmental Policy of German Development Institute. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you for the invitation.
Ma'am, we have known that water is becoming more and more critical as far as sustainability issues are concerned globally. What do you think is the main reason behind it? Is it the physical cause behind the water scarcity, or are there other reasons behind such rising crisis?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the water problem is not a problem that is uniformly distributed over the globe, but there are some regions where you have real water scarcity. In other regions you have water abundance, but maybe water quality problems. So you have to look at different solutions for different regions.
Right.
But even in the areas where we have water scarcity problems,
Right.
We then have water allocation problems, competing uses,
Right.
and dealing with them is not so much a question of the right technologies. I mean, we have good technologies, but the problem why we often fail to do so in a sustainable manner is because of governance problems.
Right. Ma'am, when you come to a conference like DSDS, where the theme itself talks about water security, what do you think should be the most important issues that should be discussed at a platform like DSDS, especially in the context of developing countries?
Yeah, well, the theme of this year's conference is water, energy, and food security and the interlinkages.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very timely topic because we see that I mean, there are synergies among the three sectors, but there are also trade-offs in solving the problems.
Right.
So in solving the problems, we really have to take account of the interactions among them, and that means. For instance, if we want to develop hydropower, but there's no water available or not sufficient, or it's declining because of climate change,
Right.
then we have a problem.
Yeah.
So we need to take these interconnections into account in our planning processes.
Right.
Given the climate change challenge, we need to have not only projections of the hydrology into the future, but also we need to consider different scenarios before we develop our infrastructure, and so these interdependencies need to be tackled. But they also imply that different ministries have to talk to each other,
Yes.
and that is actually quite a challenge in dealing with the nexus because of the difficulties of coordinating. I mean, each ministry has its own logic and its own interests, and there are few incentives to really coordinate among each other. I mean, the incentives would be the interdependencies, but they have to be recognized in advance, and often they are not.
Right, agreed. Because even in India, we have so many ministries, and they have their own focus areas, and to be able to coordinate them all together towards one common point has been extremely difficult. Ma'am, another question was regarding water pricing. Is it very critical? I mean, we understand, as you just pointed out, that governance needs to be very strong, but is water pricing a very critical aspect that governance should take note of?
Yeah, I think that is important. I mean, many people say water is given by God and we are not supposed to pay for it.
Yeah.
However, if we want to deliver the water to the consumers, we need infrastructure for that.
Right.
And that infrastructure is costly.
Yeah.
And in that sense, we would not per se pay for the good, but we would pay for the service that is given to us.
Right.
And here, achieving a cost recovery is really essential for having a sustainable service and a reliable service for the consumers.
Right. In fact, ma'am, you partly answered my next and final question, that was regarding private players entering the water segment. In a country like India, or probably elsewhere in the world, water is treated as a very sensitive resource. And when people see that a private sector is coming in, they were, in fact, in Delhi, a couple of years back, there was a lot of protest regarding privatizing the water sector. So the answer that I already have is that it is justified to have private sector, and ask people to pay for it because they're paying for the service, not for the good itself. But do you think that private-public partnership can improve the situation of water management in any country?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, we definitely need the private sector somewhere in the delivery chain.
Right.
But I mean, there's been a huge push for private-public partnerships, also on the provision of finance for the service.
Right.
And I'm not so convinced that the experiences have been so good. I mean, at least in many places.
Right.
And so even in Europe, we now see that communities rebuy their water infrastructure from the private sector because they want to maintain it themselves, and they are convinced that they can deliver the service at a cheaper price for the consumers. Then if the private sector gets involved with an expectation of making profit out of the service delivery.
Dr. Ines, thank you so much for your time and sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.